I shall therefore conclude this essay with some traditions of man and nature, which a certain poet sang to me, and which, as they have always been in the world, and perhaps reappear to every bard, may be both history and prophecy. Huh, think he's onto something here. Now, the world would be insane and rabid if these disorganizations should last for hundreds of years. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Zach. This is a brief announcement about goings on and a hiatus on the channel. But first, I was reading Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay Nature, which was written in 1836. And if you don't know who he is or you're not familiar yourself, without getting into his time and place, his life, his history, trying to condense the life of a man and world in the short span of a short video, without getting into all that, it was just he was an American living in the 1800s, and he went through a chaotic time, including the Civil War, as well as the beginnings and not beginnings, the ongoing technological industrial revolution that had just hit real big recently, right, in the late 1700s. He's witnessing how this is really setting the world in motion, how it's changing everything, how everything's being disrupted. And this is basically the end of nature, which is sort of like a book-sized essay, and he's recognizing that man has dwarfed himself with these new perceptions and ways of operating and being in the world. It's totally disrupted him from his natural state. Where is nature now? Emerson was in a place to write about it. Modern people couldn't write this essay, nor could they write about it, because where is nature? There is none. Everything has been enculturated, everything has been digitized, copied, monetized, all down the line. But what he's getting at here, kind of going on, is he says, a man is a god in runes. When men are innocent, life shall be longer and shall pass into the immortal. It's like the European Tao, right? As gently as we awake from dreams. So he's saying when we're held innocent, when we are not being, I don't know, slaughtered by the millions or the billions, and we're not being blamed for everything, and we're not being held to some idiot a million years ago the idea of original sin or whatever other idea, when we're innocent, life is longer and we pass on into the immortal as gently as we awake from dreams. Now, the world would be insane and rabid if these disorganizations should last for hundreds of years. I'm thinking about it 1836 to 2025. You know, it is kept in check by death and infancy. Infancy is a perpetual Messiah which comes into the arms of fallen men and pleads with them to return to paradise. Man is the dwarf of himself. Once he was permeated and dissolved by spirit. He was filled nature with its overflowing currents. Out from him sprang the sun and the moon. From man the sun, from woman the moon. The laws of his mind, the periods of actions externalize themselves into day and night, into the year and the seasons. But having made for himself this huge shell, his waters retired. He no longer fills the veins and the veinlets. He has shrunk to a drop. He sees the structures that still fits him, but fits him colossally. Say rather, once it fitted him, now it corresponds to him from far and on high. He adores timidly his own work. Now is the man the follower of the sun, and woman the follower of the moon. Yet sometimes he starts in his slumber, and wonders at himself and his house, and muses strangely at the resemblance betwixt him and it. He perceives that if law is still paramount, if still he have elemental power, if his word is sterling yet in nature, it is not conscious power, it's not what's already known. It is not inferior but superior to his will. It is instinct, thus my Orphic poet sang. Yeah. So what's he mean by all that? Now, the world would be insane and rabid if these disorganizations should last for hundreds of years. And if you want the gist of what I mean there, we're going to hop down here real quick. Predictive history, a channel I sort of covered before just in passing. He talked about what was going on with Iran, Israel, and US about a year ago. And if you're familiar with the news, they've been as an American, I can tell you they primed us for days. Oh, we're getting officials and experts are talking, blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, oh, they're talking about using these weapons, then those, and now the bunker buster, and, and finally they're going to do it. And by then it's like, yeah, you already told us that days ago. We could hear from the alarm bells and the media and the experts, wink, wink, right, days ago. So anyway, he just released this today, but as you can see, he's already kind of laying out here on predictive history. The title of this video released today, June 22nd, 2025, is Geostrategy Update Number 2. World War III begins. Let's game theory. And he said he's going to release another video about the factions and the fact that these people do believe in their identities and their holy wars, and that, and my own take is to point out as an American that a lot of these Europeans and a lot of these Americans and people who don't understand how serious Jews, Muslims, and Christians are, that they're just very naive, and that their idealism and their humanism and their secular atheism is just going to get blown to pieces. It's not going to withstand whatever the new Holocaust is going to be, let's say, if it hasn't already been happening, which I think a lot of people are already saying it has been, but it's just the shoe's on the other side now because it's Jewish Hitler, really sticking it to the Palestinians because they got a big agenda. And I think they basically think like, hey, from Egypt to everywhere is our territory, right? So they want to become the new world power. So it might bode poorly for them if everyone winds up ganging up on who it seems a lot of people already hate, which is Israel. Um, and from here, I didn't want to get into this. I didn't want to, there's everyone else is going to be talking about it. It's going to be like everything else for the last 25 years. It's going to be hot topic after hot topic, people making their money. It's just cultural steam, cultural repression, vapor, too much, too fast, too soon, too much information, right? Going to drive a lot of people crazy, going to get blown to pieces, and all these changes probably going to be all sorts of economic, social, and political problems. And, but I don't, just to be clear, because I get it, a lot of people would see this as gloom and doom, but, I guess at the end of the day, it winds up being pretty scary, pretty spooky, pretty grim news for a lot of people. I think a lot of things are going to be going the ways people couldn't have ever even imagined in their worst nightmares, because a lot of people lack an imagination for fun, for evil, for creativity, and the kind of games that are really being played in this world, right? But I didn't want to end on just a grim note or a bad note, if you will. Not that I think it's either of those things. I see it as life as it ever was. It's a Dionysian economy. It means the surplus of energy, ego, identity, idealism, production, consumption. It can't be captured. It can't be preserved. It can't even be fully understood, which is part of what the larger fight and meltdown is about, right? So I don't want to take any of that for granted. It's very complicated, and I think it's absurd that anyone alive today claims to know what's going on and have it all figured out. There's a very few people who really, I think, have a good psychological grasp on who and what humans really are, and more specifically, probably are not. So I'll leave that to him. So if you want to check this out, predictive history, and as I've been covering timely and untimely matters on this channel, I'll leave this to him, and everyone else will be talking about it forever. Right, just like World War II, they talked about it until we got here to World War III. So it's like they were priming us all along. And I mentioned it before that, I think this century is very much going to be a repeat of last century, because why wouldn't it when everything is the same and returns the same? So, I wanted to move on to some literature, um, kind of finish out the second season of the channel here a bit earlier than I intended or thought, but basically kind of doing this before I end on a hiatus here. This is Nietzsche's Thus Spake Zarathustra. And rather than carrying on in the same angry direction as everyone else, because, the other topics, as it were, it's not just matters of peace and war, but money, which means blood and blood debt. And, that there are real games being played by serious factions here that I think the average modern person is just too naive and too out of touch and too disrupted in the lack of nature world that we've created. So this is Zarathustra on Old New Tables. And this is him encouraging people to laugh because he understood that we were already sentenced to hell. You know, when life is so serious, we were sentenced to hell thousands of years ago. You know, he hooted and hollered us, he says. Weeping and teeth gnashing did he promise us, is what Zarathustra says, talking about the Savior. And I forget, m- maybe it was even was it Augustine himself who said that specifically? I can't remember, but the point is that that is hell. That mankind and the saviors for a long time have been creating hell. As an animal, you can see we kind of went from a matriarchal being to a patriarchal being, from a patriarchal being to total destruction and devastation. So kind of wild how that works. So since it's the ultimate tragedy, to compensate, it would have to be the ultimate comedy because then there's no way you could appreciate that pain because it's the same no matter what side of the spectrum you're on. Um, so, and thus I bade them upset their old academic chairs, and wherever that old infatuation had sat, I bade them laugh at their great moralists, their saints, their poets, and their saviors. At their gloomy sages did I bid them laugh, and whoever had sat admonishing as a black scarecrow on the tree of life. On their great grave highway did I seat myself, and even beside the carrion and vultures, and I laughed at all their bygone and its mellow decaying glory. Everyone who is about to die, we salute you. Verily, like the penitential preachers and fools, did I cry wrath and shame on all their greatness and smallness. Oh, that their best is so very small, and oh, that their worst is so very small. Thus did I laugh, thus did my wise longing born in the mountains cry and laugh in me, a wild wisdom, verily, my great pinion rustling longing. And oft did it carry me up and away, and in the midst of laughter. Then flew I quivering like an arrow with sun intoxicated rapture, out into distant futures, which no dream hath yet seen into a warmer south than any sculptor ever conceived, where gods in their dancing are ashamed of all clothes, that I may speak in parables and halt and stammer like the poets, and verily I am ashamed that I still have yet to be a poet, where all becoming seem to me dancing of gods and wantoning of gods, and the world unloosed and unbridled and fleeing back to itself, as an eternal self-fleeing and reseeking of one another of many gods, as the blessed self-contradicting, recommuning and refraternizing and with one another of many gods, where all time seemed to me a blessed mockery of moments, where necessity was freedom itself, which played happily with the goad of freedom. You know, that everyone in the world feels compelled to do or don't do as they do. It makes total sense. And finally, here, on laughter. The higher its type, always the seldomer doth a thing succeed. Right? Man, rope stretched over an abyss. Ye higher, and then beyond him, ye higher men here, have not ye all been failures? Be of good cheer. What doth it matter? How much is still possible? Learn to laugh at yourselves as ye ought to laugh. What wonder even that ye have failed and only half succeeded, ye half shattered ones? Doth not man's future strive and struggle in you? Man's furthest, profoundest, star highest issues, his prodigious powers, do not all these foam through one another in your vessel? What wonder that many a vessel shattereth? Learn to laugh at yourselves as ye ought to laugh, ye higher men. Oh, how much is still possible, and verily how much hath already succeeded? How rich is this earth in small, good, perfect things, in well constituted things, and a few people too. Set around you small, good, perfect things, ye higher men. Their golden maturity healeth the heart. The perfect teacheth one to hope. And finally, what hath hitherto been the greatest sin here on earth? Was it not that the word of him who said, woe unto them that laugh now, right? We couldn't laugh thousands of years ago, and you definitely can't laugh now. It's just upsetting, right? Laughter is great because it upsets people without even trying. It unsettles them, it shakes them, it arouses them, it wakes them back to slumber or brings them back to sleep in a reconciliation of manners. Um, so he says, woe unto them that laugh now, right? Like similar, conversely, the Buddha said this world has always been said to have been on fire. So saying that back in 500 BC, you know, Right? The world's on fire. How could you laugh now? Did he himself find no cause for laughter on the earth? Then he sought badly. There's Nietzsche critiquing Jesus and the rest of the Christians. A child even findeth cause for it. He did not love sufficiently, otherwise would he also have loved us, the laughing ones. But he hated and hooted us. Wailing and teeth gnashing did he promise us. Hell, eternal torment, and also that the Christians would be able to watch us for eternity suffering. Instead, we're laughing. Anyway, he did not love sufficiently, otherwise would he also have loved us? Yes. Must one then curse immediately when one doth not love? That seemeth to me bad taste, right? Making some room for the other. Thus did he, however, this absolute one. He sprang from the populace, and he himself just did not love sufficiently. Otherwise would he have raged less because people did not love him. Right? That's the male ego for you. That's patriarch. I mentioned that doom patriarchy. That's what that insecurity is. That's what that mania is. That's what that neuroticism is. That's what the woman knows she is the vessel of creation, right? Man, like he's got to overcompensate. And even, whether it's virtual or actual penis, it's never enough, it seems. Anyway, must one then curse immediately? Yes, we read that. So he sprang from the populace, and he himself did not love. All great love doth not seek love, it seeketh more. Go out of the way of all such absolute ones. They are a poor, sickly type, a populist type. They look at life with ill will. They have an evil eye for this earth. Go out of the way of all such absolute ones. They have heavy head and sultry hearts. They do not know how to dance, right? In dancing with Nietzsche and Zarathustra, it's often, it's a sign and a symbol for thinking. How could the earth be light to such ones? Tortuously do all things come nigh to their goal, like cats they curve their backs. They purr inwardly with their approaching happiness. All good things laugh. So that kind of has it, right? Some Zarathustra's ethics. But that's what he says. Learn to laugh because I don't think anything human makes it out of the future. And I don't think anything that was formerly known and the ways we used to do things, that's all said and done. The time for mourning, the time for crying, the time for loss, and even contemplation is kind of over. That's for future historians to figure out, while modern people figure out how to survive the coming madness, right? Because what is European history and Christianity if not a history of madness? Our ages are characterized by basically nonstop war. And as an American, we've been at war for almost 230 years, basically as long as we've existed. So the good thing about humor is that it finds itself upward and downward through all channels, from the furthest, highest away castles and from the most alone people laughing to themselves, like Kafka and Nietzsche and whoever else, right? To the soldiers in the trenches, right? Laughter finds its home everywhere. And maybe this is what Nietzsche meant when he talked about a gay science. And he said, the philosophers of the future, they will be known for their laughter and their golden laughter. And it's like, well, why? Because this world is being completely poisoned, bombarded, and handled in such a manner as to seemingly is to try to make laughter impossible for everyone everywhere. But this is just me looking into the future by looking at the present, which seems to be no different than people of the past looking to the future, just as they look to the present and the past, and it just, eternally recurs. And before I run off too quickly, I just wanted to mention that, recognizing how much things have changed, not just since the last modern 20th century, late modernity there, into post-modernity and what seems to be World War III here, is that I recognize things have changed. I live, living between eras, seeing our technology change, how it changed our environment, how it changed everything else. I just see that those times and places and those people are, and all that is long gone. So those old ways of life, those old ideas, those old ideals, those are all going to keep getting blown apart and falling away as this new century, which, as I've mentioned before, is going to be a repeat of the last century, begins to unfold. But the main point is to point out for people, if they're not kind of on the trolley yet, is to say that the time for mourning, the time for crying, the time for worrying and stressing is over. And also that you could spend your entire life worrying about the worst things happening, and they could still happen anyway, in which case all the worrying didn't matter anyway, right? Because we know the ending anyway. Everything and everyone, right? Death approaches. So does philosophy and then religion, right? So here we are. And what I wanted to say was basically, yeah, that the time for worry and concern and mourning over the past or trying to get back to it, that's over. And it's about to get really blown apart in ways that I don't think a lot of people see coming. So I just wanted to say, yeah, that the time for complaining or even trying to figure it out, it's over. We can leave last century and even these last 25 years here into the new Y2K millennium, right? Year 2000, 200001, hold up, millennium, right? Like that we can leave all that there for now and realize that we have a lot coming to us, and it seems like everyone's not prepared. Well, except the people who could afford to insulate themselves and who saw these things coming. From there, I just wanted to give you an update on my channel, and that's to say I'll be taking a break for a while. I'm not 100% sure when I'll be back uploading videos on a regular basis, or even if I will, or what that'll look like. Nor can I promise that when I come back that I'll even necessarily be doing the same kind of things or maybe start a different channel. Thanks for everyone who's supported the channel. Welcome to anyone else who stumbles along. Like I said, eventually I'll get back to it. I just can't say exactly when, why, how, or if the content will even be the same. Maybe there'll be something new to talk about. From there, I'm still doing the poetry reading on the channel. That's just deferred. So if you're familiar, or look it up on the channel, find the email address, submit your work. So if you're a writer or you're a poet and you want to submit your work for a poetry reading, it's sharperssubmissions@gmail.com. I'll put a link in the low bar and put it here now for the end of the video. And lastly, wherever this finds you, I hope it finds you well. I hope you're ready for whatever's coming our way, and take care of yourselves. And as I generally, I guess, have come to say as a manner of habit, if we're so fortunate to be here tomorrow and the next day and the next day, I'll catch you then. Take care.